Monday, driveway repair, putting stainless steel brake corporation, slotted cross-drilled rotors, all sorts of other nice stuff. Stock rotor, stock caliper, right about where I start disassembling stuff. Now the caliper bolts are actually a 3/8 Allen wrench head. Now the trick you can do, instead of trying to bust yourself trying to get these out like that, is to actually use a ratcheting set like that, which enables you to get leverage to loosen the caliper. Little trick. Here's the rotor with the caliper tucked up out of the way. The pads are off, and so are the shims and everything else. This is the dust cap having been removed, showing you the castellated nut and the cotter pin that needs to be pulled, and then this rotor will come off. This is the inside of the rotor now having been pulled. I removed the dust cap, the castellated nut, there's the cotter pin, here's your spacer, and this is your outboard wheel bearing. Inside wheel bearing is still there, and of course we've got a lot of cleaning to do on this spindle. This is a shot of the bearing seal having been removed, exposing the inboard bearing. Now you'll notice I removed the bearing seal with a lot of tender loving care because I don't want to distort that. Because it's such a new seal, I want to reuse it. Okay, what you see here are the nice and cleaned up bearings, washer, nut. It's the rear seal, all nice and clean. You will see this is why I'm reusing it. It's in great shape. And the dust cap. Now, as for the spindle, you'll notice the spindle now looks nice. You almost want to eat off of it. And this is where I break for dinner. When I come back, I will be reassembling. Okay, this is the new cross-drilled slotted rotor and the caliper, all cleaned up, ready for mounting. Okay, the fun part, packing a bearing. The only way to really get this into this is by getting really dirty. Now, the only way to really get a pretty well lubed up bearing is to get a hand that ends up looking something like that, because you have to push the grease through all of the race till it pops up the other side. This is the spindle, lubed up, ready to go. This is the rotor with its interior seal and bearing, lubed up and ready to go. And this is Matty Matty, all lubed up and ready to go. Okay, this is a picture of the rotor held on loosely just by the grease. You'll notice that the front, or the outboard bearing, is in place. So what we need to do is we need to put in the washer. The washer only orients one way. That slides in thusly. Then comes the castellated nut that gets screwed on till it's about finger tight plus snug in order to do the initial setup to load the bearings properly. You want to snug it, then rotate the rotor forward a few times. Make sure it's snug. This will sound kind of funny and backwards, but this seats the bearing, making sure that the grease isn't holding it back. Then what you have to do, back it off, then finger tight. Then the next thing you need to do is you need to line up that nut. Back it off until it lines up with one of the holes, which is right there actually. Nice and off. And then install the magic cotter pin, which is this little doodad right here. It will go through the castellated nut out the other side, and then you tighten it, which I can't do with one hand. Just to show you, the cotter pin has been bent at the bottom, protrudes through the top, and it will not allow that nut to back off. Done. At least with the greasy part. Now the next thing that goes on is the dust cap. I will do that in a second. This is the caliper with the inboard and outboard pads installed. Okay, this is what it looks like with the caliper installed. The only problem is this little hose has to be transferred, and I'm not about to replace it, so I'm just going to loosen it up and transplant it, and then I'll be done, except for the bleeding. Okay, and what you see is actually the line connected to the brake. And Stevie, thanks to Stevie, and where's Maddie? My two helpers who helped me actually bleed the brakes. See? It doesn't take much more than 7 years old to help do brakes.
You rock. You rock.
All right, take a bow. Hurrah. Okay.